investment banker. I have long forgotten. It is part of my resume, but not part of my skill set anymore.
ये तो
Um,
ये तो जो बोला ये लोगों में अभी नहीं
that could also be true. But we are live now, so
okay we will move on
yes. So this is not just us.
okay
Live typically goes with a 5 to 7 second lag. So we have our first viewer. So I can confirm we are live.
okay
Oh,
so
we
we
have
are
a
on
few viewers. Yes, we
okay
are
we
on.
are not only three of us then.
Yes, we are not only three of us.
Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. We were supposed to go live at 10:30, but I realize now that it is very easy to do in-person events than the online ones because because for the online ones we are dependent on a lot of other things, or at least getting the basics right, which we'll have to do well.
Correct.
Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. We'll just this my uh, background is acting weird or what?
It
I'm
is.
I'm
So it
I'll
is
just try
actually
to
taking away the eChai logo from your hoodie. I don't know
okay.
why, but
Okay, so
now it's there. Yeah, yeah.
okay, I'll make it little better. Ha, this is good.
Ah, perfect.
Okay, so thank you so much everyone for joining in. We've been doing a lot of this in person, the startup code events, and suddenly since last couple of weeks, a lot of us have become very active on LinkedIn. Probably thanks to all these personal classes that CJ takes. So all of us have become very active on LinkedIn. So you will see a lot of posts from us. But now this particular video or a live is an extension of that. So Shrijay and yes, thank you so much. Every since last 10, 12 years, every time I want to come up with a new format of eChai, you two and Nadim bhai, Kumar Manish, Pankaj bhai, these are the 4 5 folks that I reach out to. So thank you so much for accepting my invite to join at 10:30, which eventually became 10:50 or 20:40 odd. But thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you for having us and considering us for as the first few people who get to be part of your initiatives.
Okay, so what is the take of your family for you joining this random startup discussion at 10:30 p.m.?
For me, to my family doesn't care. So, so for the first few years, they were trying to convince me that, hey, why do you come home late, this, that, all of that. Ultimately, they started realizing that Yash not being at home actually results in peace of mind. So, so they are happy.
Srijay is being called at home.
Shrijay just left.
No, no,
But yeah, so
I'm here. I'm
that's
just
my story.
Okay, yeah. So you were saying your family has
Yeah, they're happier. They're happier. I'm here. Um, yeah, for sure.
okay. At least for 2 days, they'll get to know what exactly happens. Then they'll have a recording or a proof of
Yes.
something.
For today, they'll know that I was actually here. And for some reason, it feels a little like you remember that very famous interview on Times Now where Arnab Goswami had an empty chair in, instead of a party spokesperson.
Yep.
so, so it feels like she has abandoned us during the live, which is
Yes. CJ get lots of he gets lots of US calls, so probably he's gone for
yes.
that call. Uh,
I'm just trying to figure.
oh,
Oh
okay.
wow! Oh
he, he has left midway now.
wow! Perfect,
This
perfect.
reminds
This
me
is
another interview which we will not get into that he has left midway. Uh, uh, but yes, so idea of our startup code was to talk about early stage startup challenges because
yes,
since we do a lot of these events, we end up engaging with a lot of folks who are starting up. So this is
yes.
2025, so a lot of folks who would have an idea in 23 figuring out what to do. So we still get a lot of such people who attend a lot of our weekend meetups. So idea
Yes.
was to like what was your experience when you were starting up, and then if you were to start again, how would you approach? Because now the ecosystem is different. There are not many resources. There could be a lot
Mhm.
of competition, but the situation has changed. But so tell us about you, your background, and then what you were doing when you were starting up.
So largely when I just recently started another company right about a year ago. So before that a little bit of background. Hi for the people who joined in. My name is Yash. I was one of the co-founders at ClientJoy and currently I'm one of the co-founders at Momentum. ClientJoy was a CRM for freelancers and agencies which we founded, scaled, raised funds for and grew the company and ultimately got acquired in January last year. January of 2024, and since then I started another company called Momentum. At Momentum, we help mid-market and enterprises with AI-led sort of digital initiatives, right? And that's a little bit of background. Starting the first company and starting the second company were very different.
Okay.
Um, Starting the first company was a lot a lot of the things that should have already been that I already knew when I. Oh, sorry, Shrijay is also here. Just one second. Yeah, Shrijay is back. That was quick. Um, so Shrijay, I was just talking about the difference between starting the company, uh, like starting client versus starting momentum in
Yeah, I was
Momentum.
here.
And
Yeah.
that was in which year? Like when you started up first?
So I started up in 2013, 2014,
Okay.
but Client Joy I started in 2019, and Momentum I started in 2024, just last year, right? So we'll have our first anniversary in the month of February. So yeah, so the first time starting is a lot of figuring the basic things out, right? Trying to figure out how to build a team, trying to figure out um, who are the stakeholders in the ecosystem that can be helpful for you, trying to figure out and not understanding that ideal customers, figuring out value proposition, figuring out what are your go-to market channels. These are some of the most important questions to be answered. Starting up second time, I think I was extremely clear on what are the right questions to ask. Finding answers to those questions was still a journey, a difficulty, and we're still on it. But very clear on these are the things that we need to figure out first, and we figured some of them out in the first year of our journey. This year we'll figure some more out. So
Okay.
fingers crossed.
CJ, when did you started your business?
I started Hire for Hire, which is a consulting business. We started in 2013. Um, and then around 2015 is when we incorporated LegalViz. Around 2016 is when we actually went live with the portal. So yeah, around 2016 is when we started LegalViz, and about 13 was Hire for Hire. Pretty
Okay.
same journey as Yash.
But Yash has moved on to another company now. Do you have any such plans? He had an exit, right?
I'm still sticking to it, hanging on there.
Okay, but you have two companies.
I do run a
He has
consulting
double the companies.
firm, and yeah, and then LegalViz, obviously, which is legal services or compliance related services.
Okay, so we are live on LinkedIn also. So probably some of the those couple of friends of ours who are watching this LinkedIn live do comment as if any questions that you have for whose answer you already know, but still for us to get an engagement on LinkedIn live, you can ask any questions. We'll try to
Yeah.
answer that. So we have a good recording which we'll can put up as a reel also.
Yeah, and it's also
So
on YouTube. So Kush on YouTube says hello. Hello.
so our answer is also hello to you, Kush. Okay, anybody else who is on a LinkedIn who wants to ask a question, you can ask. Like, I'll continue with one or two questions that I want to ask. So, Shrijay, why this program called the Startup Code? We've been talking a lot about it since last 2, 3 months, but why does it matter? Why don't you do something else with your business where you invest a lot of your time and energy to get a lot more customers? But why Startup Code?
I think just having this conversation of us being a compliance service provider company, and sort of engaging with thousands of customers across India. eChai definitely a bigger sort of network in the sense that it engages lakhs of startup entrepreneurs and people who would want to start up their journey. Obviously, looking at the resources, a lot of times what happened or what felt was the programs, the acceleration programs that were there, they were largely focused on very small cohorts who make the cut, and most of the people will be left behind, or they don't have an access to those sort of accelerator programs. The second bigger thing that I think when we had a conversation, I think we felt was um, that a lot of knowledge is more of a gyan and not very relevant at times to a 0 to 1 journey, right? And that happens because a lot of the people who are actually mentors, they're down far in their journey, that the problems that are of very early stage entrepreneurs are left behind, right? And so their solutions are also uh, you know in tune with the resources that they have, which is not the case for a 0 to 1 journey entrepreneur. And so I think it becomes very meaningful to create something where people who have lived that experience recently, who have figured that out in bits and pieces, people who can contribute immediately to problem solving of very specifically that 0 to 1 or 1.5 sort of a journey, rather than a journey of somebody who want to scale from X million to 3X million. That's not the case for most of the startups. And so that is where I think the startup code adds tremendous value, as it is delivered by the founders who have lived that journey recent enough that they would be able to relate with the problem statement and provide more practical solutions to that. So I think that's sort of the rationale.
Okay. So
Got it.
so so
Hey,
both of
and
yes, yes.
so we have a question from Neeraj. I just put it up on the stream as well. So Neeraj asks, what are the challenges you faced, Shrijay, while building Legal Viz, and then I can go maybe add a few others that I faced while we were building Client Joy. It's okay if we take the questions, right? Or do you
Yeah,
want to?
yes, you go for it. Then let Srijay respond.
Oh, okay. So, couple of challenges in my case for ClientJoy were essentially not understanding how to price the product, not understanding, I mean, going after too wide of a market, figuring out what is the right sort of balance in terms of the skill set for the team that we needed to build, raising less capital than this business would require, specifically the first round, and not like being able to project or know as to how this business can scale and grow. Hoping and thinking that the projections that are there on the spreadsheet are actually going to turn out to be true. So yeah, so these were some of the very early challenges that we faced at ClientJoy for sure. Shrijay, some if you want to add.
Yeah, I think with hire for hire, definitely we have
No, not hire for hire, legal biz.
for legal ways. Definitely we and that was more challenging, I believe, than not, because so I always thought that I've worked with similar business before, where I used to work with a company in the US. So definitely some of the knowledge that I gathered from there, but more largely I think the um, Indian sort of market is definitely challenging in terms of managing price and scale. More importantly, back in 2013, there was still India as a country was going through a validation of whether services can be consumed online. So it was still an era where people would trust the marketplace. People would probably trust proprietorship websites or proprietary websites where people are selling tangible products. But that was definitely not an era where people would procure services online, and more importantly, services which would relate to legal or compliance, right? That is probably the farthest end of the acceptance curve. So I think there was definitely a lot of education, thought leadership building, um, lot of press and media, lot of blogging, lot of engagement with the communities. Kind of turning those physical touch points into a digital experience. Spreading the knowledge so people feel more comfortable. The brand is more tangible. So those sort of things. I think that was the biggest challenge.
Okay. And uh, one of the thing when which all of us have done, but I believe not as frequently as I should have, or I feel that a lot of my friends should have, that seek support while you are starting up early. We don't
Absolutely.
ask people for support when we start. So from both of your experiences, what did you do? Like, you ask your friends, market that, please be part of something that I'm trying to do. Or you any anecdote about that, where you push someone to help you and that did wonders for you. We start with Yash.
Yeah. Yeah, should start. I was
Sure,
fixing
yeah.
that mic.
Okay, I didn't get what Shrijay said, but that's okay. So I'll try and start. So
Yep.
so one of the things that I did, and I mean not intentionally or with that thought process, but just being part of a few communities that are entrepreneur or startup centric, um, including largely eChai, which is where um, which is where I was able to get in touch with a few of the founders. Where what happened was that there were some certain founders who were doing extremely well, certain founders who were not doing that well. But then all of us would sort of get together, discuss our challenges, and sort of like a support group. We would it wouldn't be like a therapy. It would essentially be where founders are not being very kind if you just look at the words. But ultimately, if you look at the intention, it genuinely works as sort of therapeutic in nature. So that support group was extremely helpful. And then asking, just being shameless and asking for help to anyone and everyone, right? So one of the things that I firmly believe in is paying it forward. And so there have been so many people who let us sit into their office for free. So many people who made connections, who opened doors, who connected us to institutes for finding talent, who selflessly connected us to prospects and potential
Can you,
customers.
yes, can you give one example or a specific anecdote so that then we can tag that person so that we get little more
Sure.
engagement?
Sure. So I still have the first is I there was a small eChai event which is where I was presenting, and by no means was our software ready for any sort of meaningful consumption, let alone someone paying us for it. And we found our first customer in that event, right? Also an Ahmedabad-based company called Guardian Glass. They paid us 1,500 rupees for like 1,500 rupees per month, so like 4,500 rupees for a quarter. They took a license, like few licenses for a quarter. I still have that image for the first invoice that we printed. And so yeah, so someone, so his name is Tapan Kachiria.
And
Um,
Nirmit and Tapan.
and Nirmit
Yeah.
is, yeah, Nirmit and
Yeah.
Tapan. Yes. And so Nirmit, I think, is active in eChai, who met us and ultimately Tapan purchased, right? So that's one example. Second example would be there's a company called Spaso, I think 200 to 50 people company. One of the founders is Rakesh, Mr. Rakesh Patel. Yeah, I can now call him a good friend, but he was the person who introduced us to eChai, right? So or that something like
Yes.
this exists. We didn't know about this, and he was the person who sat with us and made us understand that there is a methodical approach to building a software, right? I'm a mechanical engineer. My co-founder was an environmental and planning engineer, and we were looking for a team to work with us. And he sort of explained to us what is SDLC, what is how to write a PRD, what is the difference between waterfall and agile, and so on and so forth, right? So he took out time and explained these things to us. And these things are available on the internet for sure. This is 2014 I'm talking about. At the time also they were available. But we didn't know what were the right questions to ask, right? And so these people essentially came in and said, hey, here's something that you're doing wrong. Here's probably like they pointed us into the right direction, reduced our cost of learning. Right? These are some of the examples. There will be a lot of other founders also who connected us to investors who connected. The list is sort of endless, but yeah.
Okay, awesome. These are some very good examples. We have a lot of questions. We'll take up those questions once Shrijay responds this. Shrijay, whom do you ask for help?
I think plenty of people, and something that I also wrote very recently on LinkedIn as one of the posts. The emotional quotient for the founders. Times what happens is startup journey get very excited uh, and it sort of, I mean, it's a roller coaster, right? And so a lot of times you have great highs of highs, and sometimes the lows are lower. And so you definitely need an ecosystem where you can vent out. More importantly, an ecosystem where people are not judgmental about um, the things that you are trying to do as fanatic as they are. So I think that is where the sense of community is very, very important. Time and again, talk to people about what are your plans, what are you trying to do. A lot of times you get advices which makes you think whether yours is the right approach to sort of get to the problem solving or not, and redefine that. So plenty of examples.
Can you one example?
I think I mean, there has been plenty, but one of the examples are very hard talk. For example, like last month, I had this conversation with Yash, and I told him that we are going a SaaS way, and building a product, and there's been substantial investment that we already made, building that product, if that was something that was discussed with uh, you know. A regular person who hasn't gone through this journey, the answer would be very binary, right? Whether this idea is absolutely pathetic or this idea is tremendous. More importantly, most of the people who are friends with you would tell that this is a tremendous idea and you should do it, right? And then that conversation actually went on for more than 2 hours, where um, he sort of explained me through his journey of client joy, uh, and we could categorically discuss what kind of things that we could do versus we shouldn't do, and how we should approach that business and not. So I think that is very valuable when somebody has lived that journey. It kind of puts you on that fast pace. More importantly, they are not being judgmental about what you have done so far, but what can be done better moving forward. So I think
Correct.
that was a great
But
session.
Shrijay, this is a recent example. But what happened in 2013, 14?
So 13, 14, a lot of, I think, uh,
Because now though you have legal details of all of our businesses, so yes, will be very candid to you. I'll also be very candid to you.
He
But
does our compliance, right? So yeah, for sure.
uh, no, I think it has been the same throughout the years, right? I mean, even in I think 13, 14, where probably we met for the first time, and uh, I got that email very randomly enough that this is an event happening, and in fact, I was an audience at one of the eChai uh, events that I have told you earlier as well. Before I actually became integral part of this community.
I think
So
everyone has been that, right? I have also been that.
no, no. As very,
Yeah,
very
it's
specifically, I've been part of an event where Yash was probably, Yash, not probably, definitely was on the speaker panel, and then arrogant enough, he had to kind of talk in that hour. I was like, wow, that's some swag, and obviously, so
but
definitely
Shrijay,
remembering some of those
that
things.
has the swag has continued. Look at how I'm being seen in this video. How wow you can see, and look at the swag of yes.
it's
So
not it's
it has
there's no
continued.
So
it's just that I've been doing this for a little while longer, and so I know what are the poses to give and what are the looks to have and what are the angles to keep. So
yeah,
Okay,
but I mean,
awesome. So
all these
yes,
conversations, right? They add value, like just kind of having random conversations about what could be the new things that we can add. And I mean, back in the days used to be the same conversations, probably at a little smaller scale. Now the magnitude of scale has changed, and so conversation in that context have elevated. But I think at every point in time, the community conversations remain, fortunately they remain to be relevant. So I think the earlier conversations were, how to crack this one deal, versus now the conversations would be how to get thousands of people to follow you on LinkedIn, and so obviously the scale has changed, the genre of conversation has changed, but I think the whole process of kind of brainstorming around things and trying to get to the root and solution of that, I think that has remained constant. So that is very valuable.
okay, awesome. So let us take more questions. Yes, can you read out some of the questions on LinkedIn?
sure, I bring them up on
Yeah,
screen.
perfect, even better.
But before I bring the questions, I think this compliment should come in where Neeraj says excellent insights on challenges. So thank you, Shrijay, for sharing the challenges.
Uh,
Neeraj
and
has
just
one
I
more
wanted
question.
I wanted to add one more point. So this Saturday we had an event where we had a theme around LinkedIn at iHub. So there was a photo where all the panelists were there and Shrijay wasn't there. Neeraj took that photo.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Neeraj. I look great in that photo as well. So thank you, Neeraj, for making
And
that happen. And Neeraj has one more question, but before we take his second question, I think there are some first questions as well. So we want to take up a question by Pinakin where he says, as a decision maker in startup, how do you take right approach, right path, which can make or break sort of kind of a decision? How do you sort of go?
Okay, this is a very good question. Yes, you go for it, and then Shrijay will respond.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, in hindsight, everyone is wise. So once anything is made or anything is broken, then you can always say that, hey, here are some of the decisions that I made that actually made this happen, or um, here's some things that I did, a sequence of events that happened which broke things, right? So there's nothing. I would say that there's nothing like right approach. It's essentially educated guesses that you are trying to make. One of the things that I strongly recommend is that thinking about your startup as a one giant experiment, or like a collection of a lot of experiments, and then every initiative that you want to do, you essentially treat that as a singular experiment. You want to control as many variables as possible for that experiment, and then start with a hypothesis, control the variables, and measure the output, and then you essentially decide whether you want to convert that experiment into a policy or a process, or like a principle or a value that your company upholds and runs, right? And so that's how you think about different channels for sales and marketing. That's how you think about finding the place of recruitment. That's how you think about finding vendors. That's how you think about um, pricing for your products, and so on and so forth, right? So if you're very careful in terms of designing those experiments, controlling the variables, starting with a hypothesis, and measuring results, that is a good way to sort of over a period of time normalize the outcomes. Some of them, actually, most of those experiments will not work out, but some of them will. And the good thing about starting a company is that you need very few experiments to succeed, and it's okay if most of those fail as well, right? So but you need only very few sort of experiments to succeed. So that's sort of how at least I think about it.
Okay, we move on to the next question. CJ can respond
Sure.
to the next question.
Here's another by Ekta. So, Shrijay, if you can answer this, what kind of changes did you see happening in your respective teams over time? And could you maybe share some team decisions you're proud of or mistakes that you wouldn't repeat?
I think that there's been I mean, obviously tremendously proud about the team that we have, assembled over time. Not that there has not been bad decisions, um, but I think over time a lot of things have changed. So when you're a very small company, you try to retain, as much control. Perhaps also for the fact that you don't have very experienced people who have been through the journeys, and so at times you feel that you can add more value at every stage, guide them, coach them. um, uh, so that happens. I think over time when the team starts growing, definitely people with you are they also go more mature within their respective fields. Definitely they possess a lot more knowledge than you as a generalist do, which is most of the founders' cases. Um, right, and so a lot of times the decision making power, it shifts from your hand to somebody else's hand, and at the same time you take you take a bigger responsibility of empowering people with right decisions and backing them. Right, so that is very transformative. Most of the founders, I also had been in a similar situation where sometimes it is so dear to you because the startup journey is so emotional, that letting that power go is where you feel the most of the challenges, right? And so a lot of times, I think, in my opinion, the founders are not willing to, or they, more importantly, are not able to sort of give away that power. So I think that is the most important thing. Right. The second thing is obviously backing people with the decision. So sometimes the decisions are going to go wrong, and that is not only when somebody else had taken a decision. Obviously, founders' decisions also probably go wrong, more. And there are consequences to that. So anybody could do that, and just making sure that um, it is not taken as it does not create a hurdle for people to take another bold step, right? If you are backing everyone enough, you have each other's back, you will find, as Yash told, one more experiment to do, right? But if the team structure is not supportive, then next time you'll be feared of taking that next bold step, and I think that shouldn't happen in a startup mindset. It has to be agile, it has to be fluid, it has to be prompt enough. Run fast, act fast, fail fast, try something new fast. So I think that's very important. I think a decision that I in particular, what I can think I have done wrong is at very early, or rather not so early, but quite an early stage of the venture. We thought that we would hire a leadership position, which would kind of suit the VP C-suite sort of a position, and um, and in the hindsight, if I think that's that didn't work out as exactly as planned, because I think at some point in time we were also not ready to digest that position. We did not have the infrastructure set up enough to back a position that we had hired, right? And so sometimes you need very different people working for a startup, people really who can roll up the sleeves and get the things done. And not that it wasn't the case, but when you hire somebody who comes from a very structured background, um, you know, you also have to sort of understand that that's what they've been molded on, and so changing that overnight is not very easy task. So I think hiring for purpose, hiring for culture is as important as hiring for accomplishing a task, and so that's probably one mistake that I would highlight.
Okay. Thank you, Shrijay, and very good question, Ekta. We'll take the next.
So the next question I think we have from Priyanka. Priyanka, I could be wrong. I think you're from Simplify. But your question is, can you please share some general strategy for starting IT services and digital marketing services business from every perspective? Oh wow, that's someone getting
There are
greedy.
many
Um,
perspectives.
No,
from,
no. So I believe every time people respond, they respond saying that depends. So consider all these depends wala scenarios and give a better answer.
Yeah, so
Yes,
this
you
is
go for
like
it.
asking. I'll try and go for it, but this is like asking, just tell me what I need to know, right? Which is
Yeah.
which is like so open ended, but yeah, so no, so starting in technology services. So let me try and answer the technology services business. Given that I've never run a digital marketing services business, I think we have another volunteer in the community, Viraj, who runs digital, and he might be a better person to answer that question. Um, we have a few more as well, but yeah. So from a technology services standpoint, I would say a couple of things, right? So first is that as a service company, you're not restricted by the size of the market. You're restricted by the amount of concurrent projects that you can have. So I would recommend that as a founder, identify what your strengths are from your past experience, and then find a niche, right? So where you are able to build trust, and then you are able to go in and acquire customers easier. So instead of saying, as an example, that we do web and mobile application development, what I would go in and say, or one of my another friend, Nikunj, who just started Upsurge Ventures, he announced it a few days back. What so he had a SaaS company, and then he worked at Whatfix, and he runs a podcast called Entrepreneurs Cafe, and then now he's saying that he can say that we can build web and mobile applications for anything, because technology stack is the same, but he's saying that we'll build SaaS products, right? So he's going after a particular niche. So that's like one of the first things that I would strongly recommend. The second thing that I would recommend is that don't. I mean, you will be tempted to go after customers who are easy to acquire. Please make sure that you are not compromising on your pricing to acquire the easy to acquire customers, right? So you always want to make sure that the customer is able to afford your rates. And just because you don't have enough calls or meetings booked, you should not say yes to a customer. If you don't have good leads or good prospects, it's a sales problem. But if you end up closing the wrong customer, it will end up becoming a fulfillment problem and a project management problem as well. And you'll just be stuck in the loop. There are hundreds of agencies. There are total, I think, about 5,000, 6,000 IT service companies in Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar area. More than 99% of them are 50 people or less. It's largely because of this mistake, right? Which is because they compromise on their rates, and they get the customers who are not ideal for them, right? And so figure out, like, solve for the sales problem and get the right set of prospects or customers, instead of closing the easier sale for yourself. These two things I would strongly advise. Happy to follow up on that and have a longer conversation. But for the setup that we have, I think these two are good to go.
Okay, awesome. We take next question.
Next, we have Harsha. Harsha asks, any key points of personal branding that could directly impact our brand? And I think Harsha, I already know, she runs an HR company called Hummingbird Consulting. On so for a recruitment services provider, um, uh, Shrijay, if you can talk about some personal branding hacks or tips, key points that could help on their social media, especially LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think definitely starting a newsletter is so. So I'll not talk very generic. I'll probably give some specific points that can be implemented quickly. So I think the first thing that I would suggest is um, start a newsletter on LinkedIn. It is a very powerful tool. I think with that, what you would be able to do is you'll be able to gather a lot of content that you write as posts and create an IP around it, right? So people are going to know your posts as one bundle, which would be named, whatever that you would want to name, but that would provide a branding, right? So when you say, the Beer Biceps podcast, now it is an accumulation of a lot of different conversations, but as one, it is a brand, right? And so as strong of a brand that the personally one might hold, it also becomes a digital property. And over time, what you can do is there are a lot of subscribers who would keep adding, and so create a community within that, right? So a lot of times, you have that as an opportunity to reach out. Now, when you push one single blog post or one single long format post on LinkedIn, you're not guaranteed of that reach. But when people are part of your subscribed list of newsletter, they all at least get an intimation, right? So there is a nudge. So it is a much higher probability that there is an eyeball on it. So I think that for that reason, I would definitely suggest start a newsletter. Second uh, is obviously post with a good frequency, which is continuous. So rather than frequently posting, regular posting is more important, I guess, on LinkedIn. The algorithm favors that a lot. So even if you're posting twice a week, it is great as compared to posting 6 days a week and then going dark for the one full week. So try to maintain that consistency. Right. Third thing I would like to say is be part of others' narratives. So a lot of times people use LinkedIn as very selfishly to promote their content, right, and end up becoming very salesy. So it is all about pushing my agenda further, pushing my agenda forward, pushing my views, building my thought leadership. I think it also is very important to agreeing or disagreeing on somebody else's views. Right? It is a platform for enabling communication, which is very important to understand, rather than it being a platform to push as much of content that you can. Right? So when you are becoming part of somebody else's narrative, when you are trying to agree or disagree with logical explanations, a lot of times you end up building a lot better thought leadership within their circle, which is definitely not your first degree circle, right? And that is how you also start getting that reach. So I think those three things are uh, amongst many, but those three things are very important. Where one, you have your newsletter where you can nurture your audience, rather than spray firing content. Second is posting sense with a frequency plus uh, continuity. And third is being part of other people's narrative, where you provide your opinion on their thoughts, be part of the conversation. So I think those three things is at least what I'm trying to do in 2025. See how that works out.
Okay. Awesome. It's 11:23. We can wrap up in another 7 minutes, so we can go to sleep early, and CJ can continue with his US calls. Uh, okay, just pull up another question. There are a couple of more questions. One repeat.
Yeah.
Neeraj has a good question, but you can pick up anyone. Krish question.
So I think Krish asks, which is better for a SaaS company, digital marketing or offline marketing? Should I take
Yes.
this up?
Yes. You go for it.
So depends upon what your scale is. If you're doing $50 million in monthly run rate, then offline marketing. Um, if you're doing less than that, then digital marketing. So if your scale is 50 million, you want to win the world, like Odoo wants to do, or Zoho wants to do, or Freshworks tries to do in the US, or Salesforce does, or Netcore, and Microsoft, and so on and so forth. So, like the Office suite of Microsoft and stuff like that. So, if your scale is $50 million or more in monthly run rate, you want to just win over everything that exists in the world, then offline marketing for sure. But if it's less than that, then digital marketing is, I would argue, quicker, faster, more helpful, for sure. So
Okay. Yes.
that's
Have you seen any examples of early stage startup founders leveraging offline better? Like a lot of early stage startups
yes.
have those specific industry expos or conferences.
Yes, so there are so a lot of companies that are early stage and doing enterprise or mid market. They do events, like they host their own events. Also, they become part of the events where their customers are going to be there. They host dinners. I know a company called Spendflow, which is based in the US. Their marketing head is a good friend of mine. His name is Nivas. They recently raised, I think, 30 million, or something like that. But since before that, right, since a while, their it's a SaaS product, and their product is helpful for financial controllers of mid-market and enterprise organizations, so like CFOs and so on and so forth. And so they host pickleball leagues in the US. They host networking, like dinner and drinks, before and after events and stuff like that. So that's helpful as well. But offline marketing, like in general, which is like your holdings and TV and so on and so forth, I would argue that you need tremendous amount of scale, because at that scale, marketing is not, it's brand building, trust building. It's a lot more of that rather than a transaction, which is where you are trying to generate an ROI out.
Okay. Awesome. We can take the one last question from Neeraj. Which
Yes, and before we take that question, Harsha says, very insightful. Thanks, Shrijay. So just a compliment for you. And I just scroll up, and here's Neeraj's question. Neeraj says, what are your valuable inputs if someone wants to start a company in 2025? What are the things to keep in mind before leaving full-time job and starting any company?
okay, very good question, Neeraj. Yes, Srisha, you go first, and then Yash can respond.
Sure. So I think before you leave your full-time job, if you are very serious about the startup, and again, people may or may not agree with me, but leave the full-time job. Um, I have seen very few businesses succeeding well when the founder um, has has no undivided attention on that, right? And in the most brutal and honest confession, I consider Legal Vision Hire Fire to be that. Right? It could have been way too much bigger if it was one, or I had a co-founder, to be honest. Um, right? So I have seen those shortcomings, right? And that is why I would always advise, if you are really convinced about the idea, if you are really convinced that you are going to follow that, and if it is only the question of whether today or 3 months later, then it has to be today. Now, the second scenario, if you are not convinced, then you should definitely test the waters with building an MVP at the side, right? You run it by a few people. You make sure that people are willing to pay you for what you are building, eventual product, if not the prototype, right? A lot of times people say that this is great, this is useful, but people are not willing to pay for that product. Right? So make sure that you have that validation, where what you are building is not just useful or nice to have thing for people, but it is something that people will be able to spend a dime over it. Right? And if that happens, I think that would be a good time for you to then shift the gears and move to a full time possibility with chasing your dream. So it really depends on what is your conviction. If inevitably you are going to do that in next 3 months, then do it today, right? And then fail fast or succeed fast, and you have a clear direction, or sooner the better. If you are still in a dilemma, then build a very basic MVP, run it by people who are, obviously you have plenty of people within eChai to kind of share your ideas and see, seek for their candid opinion. Right? Yash has given me one, a little brutal but candid. so, so that I think that could be the way.
Okay. And check out legalwiz.in in case if you decide to pursue a
Absolutely.
startup.
Yeah,
Yeah, if
that
you
will
pursue the
leave
startup,
everything
then
else, yeah, rest of the worries to us.
strongly recommended, right? So what is this marketing where you do a live session with two of your customers? So
That is
this is a
amazing,
great
right?
question for Shrijay to answer. Um,
Yeah.
awesome. So, but here's like if I'm allowed to get like a very quickly, I'll just get a little philosophical. My roommate used to say that life is about life is about choosing the regrets that you can live with, right? So if you can live with the regret of not starting the company and staying at the job, or the other way around, if you can live with the regret of starting the company, of like leaving the job and starting the company, make that choice. Just make sure that whatever it is that you do, if you end up starting the company, then you have 1 year of runway, right? So for yourself, right? So that's one thing that I would say. But start the company. I mean, the time is yesterday.
Okay. And if you're getting paid a lot and you feel that you didn't really deserve that job, then think twice before leaving it. And if
Yeah,
you
that
feel
is a
that
point.
anyways you are in the market and you can anyways get it, so you'll always get a chance to make a good comeback.
Yeah,
Because a lot of folks got these amazing jobs in 21, 22, where the packages were so great that they could really fund their next startup as a seed fund.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. This was fun. So, how was your experience, Srijay and Yash? Do you want to
Loved it.
like? Should we repeat this?
Yeah, I loved it. Very nice, very candid. Um, so loved it. Yeah, do it again.
Okay, awesome. And what is the LinkedIn equivalent of this like, share, and subscribe? Ask towards the end of the session.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Okay, I comment for better reach. See you in our next stream. Stay tuned to
Yes,
the startup
CVFR.
code. CFBR, yeah, something like
See,
that. Yeah, CB, yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
uh, CVFR.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. This was fun. Actually, we should do a demo day like this, where we bring in this 10, 12 pre-selected startup founders. They
open up their screen, show a demo for 2 minutes, and then we do a Q&A. What do you think?
I'm game.
Yeah,
Shrijay?
absolutely.
Okay.
I
So,
think that'll be
so if you are watching this video in the 50th minute of this conversation, and if you feel that you are a product startup, just reach out to us. Because I don't think there are not many people who will do this, who will hear this. But that's a hack to get selected. Else I'll just pre-select, and nobody will get to know that how startups are selected. So if you're watching this video in the 51st minute, do reach out to me in
you are
person
quite there.
separately.
There are a few people I can see the people who are there, but yeah,
So they are the lucky ones.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, what do we do? This will get posted, or
This is already live and it has happened. I just so if I just click on end stream and then we can stay and
or you can
have a
kick us out, or
discussion.
we'll just leave gracefully then.
No, 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 don't leave, don't leave, don't leave. I'll end the stream. We'll have
Okay.
a green room
Oh, okay.
conversation as well.